Welcome back to another episode of The Lofty Lender. This week, I'm excited to announce our next guest is Kyle Barnes. Kyle's journey is one of courage, family, and a relentless drive to succeed. Originally from South Africa, Kyle moved to Iowa for love and a fresh start, and he's now thriving as a real estate investor and agent. At just 31, he and his wife Nicole are raising two young boys, Henry and William, while navigating the fast-paced real estate market. Kyle's career switch from car sales to real estate right before the pandemic wasn't exactly smooth sailing, jumping from one high-stakes field into a whole new level of insanity. But it's clear he was made for it. He sees real estate as a way to solve problems and help people take one of the biggest steps in their lives, something that gives him real fulfillment. Outside of work, Kyle's a total gearhead, or as they say in South Africa, a petrol head. He loves all things motorsports and spends many weeknights in the world of online sim racing. Kyle is also deeply rooted in his faith and community, and he's committed to building a meaningful life for his family. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. That was quite the introduction.
Yeah, man, you gave it to me. I was just putting the emphasis in there.
Hey,
Gotta love any show.
Right places.
Gotta love any show with another Kyle. You know, it's going to be an outstanding show. I can tell you that already. But let's hop right into the first segment, Business and Beyond. So you talk a little bit about in your bio that you went from one high stakes industry of car sales into real estate. Why?
Yeah, well, I think I'd say the work-life balance was a big deal for me. Going from car sales, which, as you know, you're grinding 6 days a week. You're bell to bell, as they say in the industry. So, from when the doors open to when the doors close and beyond, you're just behind your desk pushing paper, showing cars, and obviously being a petrol head, as I say, it was somewhat enjoyable because I combined two of the things that fulfill me the most, and that is people and cars. And so the next thing that I learned while in I guess we're always on an infinite pursuit of growth and education. I started learning a lot about real estate, and for example, Rich Dad Poor Dad, got my hands on one of those books and kind of just opened my mind to, there's something to be known about real estate. And so as I learned more about it, some opportunities came up and took the plunge, during the COVID years. So that was a lot of fun.
Talk me through a little bit more about that transition. So what was some of the nitty gritty there? Did Kyle come up to you and just say, hey, you need to come join my team? I think you were working somewhere else before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had another friend in there, was already an agent himself, and he gave me the break, gave me the opportunity, called me up and said, we got to meet for lunch. And it took him about 6 months to convince me. I really was rooted in car business. I thought, I'm going to be here, one of those guys, like the old guy that drinks the stale coffee and wears a Costco suit, walking around the showroom. I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be me in 30 years' time, but regardless, I took the plunge and felt, if there's ever a time to do it, it's now. That you can't get into the real estate business at the perfect time. You just got to get into it. So I figured the only way to get into it is to get into it, and here I am now. So going on finishing up my second year in real estate, but I've actually been investing in real estate for 4 years now. So it's been good.
Well, anybody that's listened now for the last, 3 minutes into the episode, they can tell that you don't sound the same. Can you tell us why you moved from South Africa to Iowa? You could have moved to California, you could have moved to New York, you could have moved to a million other places. Ames, Iowa.
Yeah, well, it's not Montana, is it? So my wife is from Des Moines, and she lived and worked in Ames at the time, and so we just did the old traditional thing that everyone does. You just go online and find love, www.findyourhusbandonline.com, and 3 months later I showed up at the door wrapped in cellophane and some bow ties, and here I am. So I kind of joke with people. I say I'm a mail order husband, but not necessarily. We met online, and so our faith and our community kind of got things going pretty fast. And I would say between meeting her and actually asking her parents to get married was a space of 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and so 5 years in and 2 little kids, it's going good.
That's amazing. Congratulations. I don't think I never could have made that decision. I love my wife, and I don't think I could have made that decision in 2 weeks. In fact, I didn't. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I was always of the notion that when you know, you know. And so I just knew. I felt like the connection was instant, and we had just a phenomenal conversations up front. Like it was the plus side is we always tell people when you have that conversation from the distance we were apart, because I was still living in South Africa. So we're 7 hours apart, 9,000 miles away from each other. If you want anything to get serious, it's like you kind of got to tick off the big things off the list, like the make or break things right off the bat. So we did, and after we got that off the checklist, so to say, yeah, it was just a home run.
That's awesome. So I got to ask, because I don't even think I've even asked you this outside of the podcast before, but were there any words that you guys use in South Africa that when you came to Iowa that just didn't make any sense, that you had to start? I mean, obviously petrol. If you said petrol, most people in Iowa said, I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. Why are you talking about that? Especially in your car sales industry, things like that. Was there anything like that?
Oh, all the time, yeah. I think a word that I get a chuckle out of is aluminium. People always say, oh, that's not how you say that. I'm like, actually, that is how you say it. That's the right way to say it. And, in car lingo, we talk about the hood, there it's the bonnet, the trunk, there's the boot. And so there's a lot of small terminologies that I would say I kind of adjusted for the business, because the thing is, when you're talking to 20, 30 customers in a week, and you have to repeat yourself saying the hood, the bonnet, you just learn to adjust it so that you just become more efficient at it. And I think that's the name of the game in car sales is you just got to be so efficient. You got to turn and burn customers, which, is not a bad thing because they come back pretty often, 2 to 3 years. So you do see them a lot more often, whereas in real estate, maybe 5 to 7 years on average. So it's definitely a different conversation, but still the same things apply. It's all about being personable, connecting to your client, and actually understanding their needs and helping them wherever they need help.
So the next step of that then is, are there any words that are specifically for a house that you had to relearn, or no?
Well, coming to the Midwest, I had no idea that there were basements in houses. And so moving here and actually buying a house myself, I was like, man, we dig that deep into the ground and we live in the bellows of the house, So basement and just the quirks and features of basements has been quite fascinating for me. I enjoy that part of real estate, and obviously here in the Midwest and the northern part of America, we just typically have the cold fluctuations where we have houses built out of wood, whereas where I'm from it's brick and mortar, and yeah, it's just difficult to wrap my head around how just not difficult, but it's just fascinating how in different parts of the country there's so many different architectural styles, and how vast that goes just based on weather and even culture.
Yeah, I'm sure life is totally different, but also very much the same. And obviously over there you didn't have your soulmate. So, what family values though do you bring back from South Africa to here that help you with your approach to customers and houses and things like that?
Yeah, the family values are essential. When it comes to when people are looking for a house, more often than not, there are some buyers out there who are either thinking about starting a family in the future. There are families that are established, or even empty nesters, people that are not looking to buy something for families per se. They're actually trying to scale down, and now the kids have moved out and things like that. So with every different season of life comes different needs in your house. And so what was nice about the South African way of living, so to speak, versus here, there's not a huge difference. So I feel like culturally, the kind of values that we hold true to there and here are very similar. So it was nice to see that the nuclear family is strong here, but also for those younger people that are starting out life, just either graduating college or in high school still. There's so many kids that I've had conversations with that are interested in real estate, and I'm excited for that. That the next generation is thinking big like that. Like real estate is a goal that they're looking to accomplish. So I do think, though, that for the majority of people where I grew up, they didn't have as much of an outlook in owning your house at a young age where I'm from. There's a lot of people in their late 20s and early 20s that just don't think of owning a house. They just think it's beyond the ability to own one, but not as much a priority as it is just a career. So, in terms of pursuing their career. So that was a little bit of an interesting thing for me to grasp that, wow, people really do value a lot of on owning a home in America.
So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about this sim car racing, because you and I have had a few discussions about this, and it's amazing to me. So first off, explain your setup to the audience, because I don't think a lot of people understand truly what sim car racing is. It's not getting behind an Xbox and using your controller to drive a car. This is a lot more advanced.
Yes. So sim racing has grown, I would say, exponentially in the last 5 to 10 years. I started sim racing initially when I was still back in South Africa, when I was racing back in about 2011, 2012. And so, it was more like just practice my muscle memory, stay sharp, learn on just how to learn some setup quirks. Because for the most part, it's transferable in terms of, if I do this or adjust that on the setup of the car on the simulator, aka what some people would call the game, that kind of correlates well to real life. Now, the feedback and, let's put it this way, if we're looking at the hardware setup, you can have $100,000 rigs and more. Racing teams around the world have multi-million-dollar rigs that are special rooms. Like you can imagine a flight simulator that Boeing would have. Racing teams around the world have driving simulators like that. Now, obviously, that's not my setup. I don't think I'd ever need it. But you can get away with a lot more of a basic setup and still compete. So what's nice about sim racing is you don't need to spend a lot of money to be competitive. You just need to have, I'd say, a place where you could spend money is coaching and guides and help from like all these online schools. Those are good investments if you want to spend money, but you also have to the barrier of entry is fairly low. So getting the software, getting the setup, I'd say you could probably be all in for $500 if for someone starting out. But also, like my rig, it's about 5,000. However, that's still a work in progress. So maybe one day we'll get to something a little bit more elaborate, but it's not necessary. You don't necessarily need more than that. And so what I do enjoy about the sim racing community is it's a lot more competitive than out in the real world, because there's just a bigger pool of people that you're competing against. So, Formula One, there's 22 drivers. Right. In the virtual Formula One world, there's 30,000. So it's a big jump.
Well, and I mean, I think probably the biggest thing is if you wreck in Formula One, you could die, right? Whereas you wreck in sim car racing, yeah, you get a little vibration in your seat. That's about it, right?
Yep, and you just push the reset button. That's it.
Takes you back 10 yards and you start over.
Exactly.
So how does your wife feel about this little hobby of yours? Because obviously it's an expensive hobby, but I'm guessing, I've seen NASCAR. If I've ever watched NASCAR, I've started watching it, I fall asleep, I wake up, and I watch the finish, and it's 2 hours later. Mm-hmm. Is the same thing the case with sim racing, or are they 10-minute races, and you just do it a little bit quick and you're out of there? Do you spend hours doing this?
You can spend hours doing it. You can spend an entire day doing it. So there's different avenues. You can do endurance racing. You can do a full NASCAR race. You can actually do NASCAR on these platforms. Wow. iRacing is one of the most popular ones that I particularly subscribe to. There's multiple different games, and there's a lot more cost-effective ones too. So I'd be doing it a disservice by calling it a game, but nonetheless. So what I prefer to do is the sprint styles, where you have a 15-20 minute race. So you can get a couple races in an evening, and it's mostly when the kids go down to bed and the wife and I have had some quality time. We kind of go, either she goes to bed or something, and I go into the bellows of my home and into my little corner there and just disappear into my racing world for about an hour or two in the evening, and that's about it. Well, that's all you really need. There are times when, if you have a Saturday afternoon free or something, you can spend the day there, but that's not necessarily something I have the luxury of. So it's mostly just a little evening event that could take an hour or two. So it's fortunately you can, but then there are real 24-hour races on iRacing. So you have to have team members, you have to have 3 to 4 teammates, and you drive specific stints that you allocate to each other. And they're professional teams that spend big money in this. Like, there are actual race teams that have full endorsements and sponsorships, and these drivers, all they do every day, they just do sim racing.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, let's switch gears back to your real estate world, because obviously that doesn't sound like that's your goal, is to spend hours and hours and hours on this game. So what is your 3 to 5 year plan, and what are your goals in that time?
Yeah, I'd say that's a question I ask myself a lot. 3 to 5 years, how does that look? And my 3 to 5 year outlook right now is to be able to build a business that is more impactful in my community. And I say that because my wife and I have set ourselves up for wanting to connect more to our community. So how that looks is just being involved in the community more. So real estate gives us the flexibility to be able to spend the time and the resources and the effort going around canvassing our neighborhoods in different capacities, but at the same time, it is the means to serve the community, because at the end of the day, there's a proportionately high percentage of homes that sell through realtors and agencies. And so if I'm speaking into just the industry at large, I want to be able to have a firm foothold in my city, my neighborhood of Gilbert, and be able to be a household name so that people can call on me should they need just advice, help. And the thing too, which I really appreciate about the team that I work with, with Kyle and the team, is there's another Kyle involved. So he's there for A to Z. It's not just there to be an agent and say, I'm going to slap your house on the market, take some cool pics and hope that someone comes to buy your house. But there's like really offering up a lot more. Yep. And what we do offer is all these others, I wouldn't say services, but it's just we're there to help. And if that is a service, whether it's hauling things away in a dump trailer, if it's helping with some fixing things up, I've even gone into clients' houses and painted with them, so I'm not advertising that as like I'm going to go paint everyone's house.
You're here first. Kyle Barnes wants to paint your house.
But, you got to do what you got to do to help get it done, because sometimes we're just in a time crunch, and people just need that extra couple hours of help. And so it's like, that's what I enjoy about it. So when I say I really enjoy people in the industry, I really do feel that real estate creates such a wonderful opportunity to connect with so many different people far and wide. So that's been successful. So I guess to answer your question is I want to be able to network a lot better. And so that this real estate business truly would just open up more avenues for business. So if it's selling more homes, if it's starting up another business alongside it that can complement the real estate business, that'd be fantastic. I do want to grow my rental portfolio a little bit more in the future as well. That's what we're focusing on. I have some goals for next year. So that's more the long-term passive side of investing in real estate. Being in the industry, you learn about some ins and outs and places that are either coming up for sale or that you could potentially make an offer on that might not even need to hit the market. That's not always going to be the case, but for the most part, I really enjoy all the different facets of real estate, whether it's the remodeling and repair, because fix and flip, that's on my cards. Buy and hold, those are also in the cards. There's a lot of avenues that I'm looking to reach out into in the next 3 to 5 years.
That's awesome. So you talk about which I love that, you and your wife together, right? I think you told me in the past that your wife is home with the boys at this point. Is there a goal for her to get a real estate license and really make this a Barnes team?
That's a question I have not actually even asked her, but she has come out of her own.
Have her listen to this, and maybe
right?
I'll ask her for you. Will you be an agent someday soon?
There you go. She has come out on her own and offered up so much help towards the business, and I think that's been invaluable because she just brings a whole dynamic to the business. For example, the administration side of things I am terrible at, and so I would say she's been very helpful in getting those things done and executing tasks. You know, there's so many different things that you need to keep your head around in real estate that you can kind of lose track of things. Yes, we have software, we have tools that help us with those things, but truly when we're talking big picture, vision, plans, she helps execute those things very well. And so to compliment her on that, she's been invaluable in helping me get those things knocked out.
That's awesome. Well, Nicole, if you're listening to this show, you need to really consider that residential real estate license. And who knows, maybe Kyle needs that little push. He needs a challenge from his wife to go out there and do more because she's now selling more houses than he is. Maybe.
That's a good problem to have, yeah.
All right, let's hop into the quick pick segment. So this is this or that. You answer the first or the second. You can give me as much detail or as little detail as you want. If you've got stories, go for it. But I just like to run through and understand a little bit more about your preferences. So first up, we've got residential homes or investment properties when you are selling.
Residential homes, for sure. There's more of a story to it. Whereas investment, you can definitely still have stories to it. There's quirks and features to it, but as I mentioned, like the idea of helping someone in that regard is just it's so awesome. To walk through someone's home with them, I just love going on like a listing tour because people will walk me around their house and you just see all this pride come out of them. Like, look what I've done in my home. I've done this. I've done that. We struggled with this and this came up, and you know, it's just really cool to hear those stories. And sometimes it's like, oh, well, now that you told me that, I have to disclose that. They're like, oh, really? I'm like, that's my job, man. I have to disclose these things. But either way, the residential has a real awesome side to it that I really enjoy. Not to say that I won't say no to an investment property to sell. I'll do that all day, but still, it's awesome to do residential.
Hosting open houses or private showings?
Private showings. I feel like when you do a private showing, you're more often than not, you're obviously representing that client, and so you're helping them make an informed decision. Open house, you're kind of putting your best foot forward for the client because you're representing the seller at that point. Unless you're hosting for someone else, you're still pretty much representing the seller because you have to have agency to represent that seller's, or you have to be appointed by the seller and their agent to represent you. It's cool because you get to walk through it and look at the house like you are the buyer too, and you're there to show like, okay, am I in the right market? What is the market like in this part of town, or is it so, you know, whatever they're asking for the home and advising accordingly. So it's, yeah.
Coffee or energy drinks?
Both. If I had to pick, coffee.
No. Reading a physical book or watching a documentary?
I fall asleep while watching documentaries, even though they're informative. Like I watched World War II in color. That was fascinating, but I fell asleep during that. I love history, so... But I'm not a good reader, so I'd still lean towards documentary.
Either way, you're going to get a nap, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
Multiple quick transactions or one high-stakes deal?
Ooh, yeah. You know, come from the car business, multiple quick transactions.
Late-night sim racing or weekend family outings?
I'd say weekend family outings.
Classic cars or modern sports cars?
Modern sports cars.
Do you have a favorite car?
There are a few. That's the problem. I'd say my dream home would be a 1,000 square foot house with a 10,000 square foot garage. That's my dream home. So all the sports cars.
Fair.
But if I had to pick, I'd probably go in the region of either a American Muscle and maybe a couple Japanese tuner cars, so like a Supra and a Mustang, Corvette. Those be on the list for sure.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite racing event that you dream of experiencing in person?
Oh, there's a lot. Just off the top of my head, the Indy 500, that's absolutely a must-see. Have not been to a U.S. Grand Prix before, so I'd like to go watch a Formula One event. Daytona 500. I was in Daytona multiple times, just never for the 500. I'd love to go watch that, and then go to like really cool countries that have amazing racing. Like in Australia, they have the Bathurst 1000, which is Australian supercars. Go watch some European motorsports. Grew up watching mostly European motorsports, so there's a lot of events. Like my retirement goals could be traveling the world watching motorsport events.
That's awesome. Date night out or a cozy night in with the family?
Cozy night in with the family.
As the boys are getting older, it's like you just sit on the couch and they just want to cuddle up with dad, and you flip on a Total Guys movie and they love it and you love it, and you don't love the movie, you love the time you get. I totally can appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it.
Favorite family vacation destination? Is it a beach or mountains, or where are you thinking?
Oh man. Well, we're in Iowa, so mountains are a commodity. I'd say we'd go mountainous. I think one of the things I don't know if I explained it to my wife in this much detail, but I'd love to go to like a Colorado wood cabin with like a hot tub on the back deck while it's snowing, and just watch the snow and sit in the hot tub like it's, I don't know, maybe 20 degrees out, and be in the hot tub while it's snowing. That'd be pretty awesome.
So, fun fact, I had a coworker who's now an insurance agent, and he did something similar to that. However, he went to Wyoming, and the cost was like a third of the price instead of being in Colorado. Still got the mountains, still got the snow in the background, still got the hot tub, got everything. And then he also did like hiking through the woods in Wyoming. Everybody thinks Colorado, but you're also in Colorado. Everybody's there, right? Whereas in Wyoming,
True.
Ain't nobody in Wyoming, that's for sure. So,
well, then I guess
we'll look
into it. Yeah.
Des Moines dining. Do you like classic steakhouse or international cuisine?
Oh, classic steakhouse for the win. Yeah, for sure. I mean, my guilty pleasure is Texas Roadhouse, so only that much more. A good old steakhouse would be good.
The go-to music genre?
Oh man, I really do enjoy movie scores. Like, I'm a movie score nerd.
Okay.
So a lot of my driving music is soundtracks to movies.
You should, I'm sure the kids will appreciate it, and I'm guessing you probably will too, but check out the Trolls movie soundtrack. Trolls is, man, my boys, they love jamming out to that. We watched that movie a couple of times, and now whenever we're in the car, Dad, turn on Trolls. And it's kind of the boy bands, right? It's a play on NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and it pulls you back to the 90s a little bit. It's kind of fun for a little bit, and then we get to our destination, and I can turn it off, thankfully.
Thankfully. Well, I'll give you a recommendation. If you're ever into a classical music mood, a couple good ones would be one of my wife's favorite is The Gladiator. I'm a huge Hans Zimmer fan, so a couple of them would be Interstellar. That's almost on absolute repeat. I just get like lost in my own world when I listen to that. That and The Dark Knight. Oh man, The Dark Knight soundtrack is epic. It's a lot of brass, not a lot of vocals, but when you're in the mood, like if you're going to a meeting and you need pumped up, just put on The Dark Knight. You'll be doing good.
Fair. I'm gonna go back after this episode, pull all my notes in, and I'll do that. I love music. So, watching motorsports or racing online, which would you rather do?
That's a tough one. It depends on my mood, I'd say. Because there's some times when I don't have a good night's racing, and I'm fired up. Like I want to tell a guy's fortune when he drives like you know what. There's some nights I've come back from a sim race, and I tell my wife, I'm like, I can catch snakes right now. I'm fired up. She's like, oh man, you look pretty fired up. I'm like, yeah man, I just wanted to get on that keyboard and just let him have it. I'm like, but you know what? He's just gonna laugh at me and say, this guy's mad. So in those moments, it's like if I'm watching racing, like I subscribe to Formula One. I watch every practice session. I watch every qualifying session, every race.
Wow.
I love it because the reason why I enjoy doing that, there's a lot of conversation that happens behind the scenes that comes through when you watch the broadcasts like that. So those are the times when you learn a lot about the sport. So I'd say that's a 50-50 for me. It's a hard decision to make.
I was kind of wondering when you said you hop on and do a couple of sim races before bed, like your brain has got to be moving 1,000,000 miles a minute at that point, maybe 200 miles an hour basically. Your brain is just fast paced, and then you just lay down and you're going to fall asleep. I don't know how you do that. That's incredible. And maybe you'd get better sleep if you listened to some classical music before you fell asleep. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Exactly. That's usually what I do is I unwind. But more often than not, it's also just a sim race. So, if things don't go to plan, which is sometimes how life happens, you kind of learn. I've learned a lot of lessons from my sim racing that I apply to my real estate business and just life in general. So, if it doesn't go to plan, well, tomorrow's another day. We can try again later.
Well, Kyle and I can both agree that the college football video game doesn't go to plan oftentimes, and so I go to bed a little frustrated myself. So I can appreciate it. So.
Fired up.
All right, let's hop into the trending topic here. So what is one piece of advice you'd give a new agent just starting out? Obviously, you started during COVID. You started during a very hard time, and you've grown your business to where it's at today, which you're killing it, by the way. How would somebody who's starting out today, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, appreciate the encouragement there. Thank you. What I didn't know about real estate is that it is all about networking. I was aware of it, but I didn't realize how big it was. So if you're new to real estate and you're starting out, I would highly encourage you to network. Like go to community events, go whatever your local board is hosting, go to those events. More importantly, I would say it's your community. Be visible around people. If you're in a church community or you have a hobby that puts you in places where people are congregating, those are the places you want, because once you have that rapport and you have that friendship or you have that relationship established, the conversation that leads to real estate is so natural that it's kind of just second nature. And so that's one of the aspects that I learned has a lot of power in this industry. And secondly, call other agents and don't be scared to ask for advice and help, especially the ones that have been in the business for a long time. Some advice that I heard from one of the coaches that I recently was listening to we went to a breakfast event, and he said, what's the harm as a new agent calling up old agents who have pipeline of like untouched or delinquent leads that are 6 months old? Say, hey, for a split, 10, 15, 20% split, give me those leads, and if I sell one of those leads, that's the split. And so that gives you something to do. Because I can tell you what, when you start in real estate, if you don't have a big network, you're going to be pretty much twiddling your thumbs for the first couple of months, wondering, what do I do? And so if someone told me that, I would have been a lot busier the first couple of months of my real estate career. Because I started in December. And so January, February, which is notoriously a pretty slow time of year, I was pulling my hair out, like, what do I do? Until we started working through more leads. I thought that was really cool that guys have so many big databases of old leads that they're like, I don't have time to get to these people. I just don't, I know I have CRM that works on that, but just a personal touch. Hey, it's 6 months since you last spoke. Are you still interested? And then taking the conversation further.
That's awesome. Well, Kyle, thank you for joining the show today. I look up to you. You're a little younger than me, and yet you have such a calm demeanor. You are level-headed. You are confident in what you're doing, but also growing, and it's encouraging to watch. And so I just want to say thank you. Every time that you and I have conversations, I always feel like I came away learning something, and today was no different. If somebody out there is listening to the show and they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, hey, I appreciate it. The easiest way to get a hold of me really is just to give me a call. My number there is 515-444-8505. Pretty straightforward. I answer calls and texts. If I don't answer a call, you can always hit me on my email, which is pretty much just my first and last name, Kyle Barnes @realestateconcepts.net. And yeah, I'd love to connect if there's any people that have questions, even if it's new agents that need any advice or tips or tricks or whatever it is. That's what I'm here to help with. So I appreciate the time today, and As always, yeah, it's always fun talking to you, Kyle. It's been insightful, and of course, look forward to what comes up in the future.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Be sure to follow us on social media platforms and subscribe to the podcast for more exciting episodes. And remember, stay curious, and we'll see you all next week on The Lofty Lender.